So what is an article? An article is a word that comes before a noun and it tells us which particular example of a noun you are talking about. As a general rule, we use a, sometimes pronounced a, or an for countable nouns when we don't think our listener will know which particular noun we're talking about. For example, I read a book yesterday. I read a book yesterday. I read a book yesterday. This is the first time I've mentioned the book, so the listener won't necessarily know which book I'm talking about. So in this instance, I use the word a. I would use the article the when I expect the listener already knows which thing I'm talking about. For example, I read a book yesterday, but it wasn't as good as the book you recommended. I read a book yesterday, but it wasn't as good as the book you recommended. I read a book yesterday, but it wasn't as good as the book you recommended. Here, I would say the book you recommended because this book isn't something new. We both know about this book because it was the listener who recommended it. Now let's have a further look at a or an. We would use a before words which begin with a consonant, and we would use an before words which begin with a vowel. For example, I would like an orange, please. I would like an orange, please. I would like an orange, please. Or, she is an engineer. She is an engineer. She is an engineer. As with all things English grammar, there are exceptions to the rule. Here are a couple of examples. When the word which follows a determiner begins with the y sound, for example, university or European, we wouldn't use an, although the word begins with a vowel. We would say a European. You may hear it pronounced a European, or a university, a university. We wouldn't say an university because of the sound that the vowel is making, the y sound. Another example is where we see the consonant being silent with words like our. So the sound that it's making is our. It sounds as though it's beginning with a vowel sound. So we would say an hour. We wouldn't say a hour or a hour. It would be an hour. Another important point to note is what happens when we have a word in between our article and our noun. For example, it is an animal. It is an animal. It is an animal. You should notice here that we are using an because the word animal begins with the vowel. However, watch what happens when we put the word small in between. It is a small animal. It is a small animal. It is a small animal. You may hear this pronounced, it is a small animal as well. Here we change our article from an to a because the word that follows the article begins with a consonant. It begins with an S. So here we would use a instead of an. If we were to remove small, then we would revert it back to an. It is an animal. It is an animal. It is an animal. As with all things English grammar, there are exceptions which can make language learning feel quite tricky sometimes, but this video has covered the basics, and hopefully it will be enough to see you right in the majority of situations. We really hope you found this video useful. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more videos from us, click the subscribe button. Until next time, bye bye!